Hey everyone, thanks for joining us once again. We are talking about kids' nutrition, and this is something that I feel that we can always talk about. We're always learning something new, and we have a lot of parents in our community out there. So today we have Michelle. Michelle, you are an RN, so you kind of understand a lot of the good food that most of us should be eating and what kids should be eating. So first, let's talk about kids, and the older they get, they love fast food, right?
Yes.
I mean, we know fast food is not the healthiest,
right?
But there was a report that came out from the CDC that said that the older kids got, the more calories they were getting as, they were eating more fast food.
Right.
I guess what are some tips or what problems can come up, if this trend continues? If you have a parent that's like, oh, he eats a little McDonald's here and there, but it's nothing bad. I mean, what are some of the consequences that kids can face in the long run?
So that's a good question. If this trend continues, you're going to see a lot of these kids growing into adulthood, and they're going to have obesity issues, type 2 diabetes, chronic health problems, just they can develop asthma, things like that. It's just, I mean, we all love fast food, but it's good to just eat it in moderation.
And here we have a graphic that has some nutritional tips. So
Right.
talk a little bit about this and what are some things that parents can take from this?
So it's good to just, have different, you want to kind of do like that myplate.gov example, and you want to have proteins and whole grains and, all these different fruits and vegetables. Those will all contribute to the overall well-being of a child.
And talk about
Health-wise.
this. Kids love fruit. So what if, a parent is making a smoothie, but they make maybe too many smoothies for, the average child? Is too many smoothies, that can be too much too?
It can be, especially with the sugar content. You don't want to add to the sugar that's, so sugary drinks like that should also be, drank in moderation as well.
Obviously, we know that kids need to eat their vegetables. I mean, when we're all growing up, mom always says, eat your veggies, right?
Right.
But there's a map that we're going to pop up. It says that 50 to 55% of kids eat their daily vegetables. So what advice should parents know about including more veggies in their kids' diet? Is it bad if parents sneak in veggies and not tell them that?
So I personally have done this.
Okay.
But, studies show that it's not necessarily a good idea to sneak things in. But sometimes you have to do what you got to do as a parent. So, what you could do is just make different types of food with, veggies. Like, for example, you could make a zucchini lasagna, or you could do homemade pizza with the cauliflower pizza crust, omelets, things like that, that would kind of, sneak it in, but not really sneak it in.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that might be helpful as well. So.
And kids, if you're watching, cauliflower pizza is actually delicious. Just give it a try. You won't know a difference between regular grain and cauliflower. And then also on the map, it says that half of Texan kids don't eat a daily vegetable. As an RN, do you know why that could be? Is it because we just, here in Texas, go big or go home, we have a lot of barbecue, right?
Yeah. A lot of times kids just don't like the way they're prepared. I mean, they may not like the raw vegetables. So it's probably a good idea to maybe try to prepare them differently, maybe saute them, grill them, just kind of do something different with it instead of just serving it up raw. You might even serve carrots with ranch dressing or celery or something like that, just kind of add something to it. That might also help. But yeah, a lot of kids don't really like raw vegetables.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I mean, that's something that I kind of struggled with growing up, but I always learned that I would eat veggies if my friends were eating veggies.
Yes,
and
yes.
So, I mean, kids learn from their friends too, right? So.
Exactly, and they're going to learn from us as well as parents. So, if you're eating them and you're modeling that nutritious behavior, they're also going to want to do the same thing.
And kind of going back to Texas kids, so even though, the CDC was reporting that they're not eating a lot of veggies, they're eating a lot of fruits.
Yes.
So that's the one thing that is good. So one of the things that we talked about in some of our previous interviews was letting kids pick.
Right.
Elaborate on what that means.
So when you go to the grocery store, you can always allow them to pick fruits or vegetables, kind of have like, let them pick a recipe, let them pick something that they want to make. And that will also help with the, help them to have like a sense of autonomy, and they feel like they're, in charge of something. So it's always a good idea just to kind of let them pick stuff.
And I love this right here, grocery store bingo.
Yes.
So that's creative, right?
It is. So if you go to myplate.gov, they have a ton of games that, kids can interact and play, and they have different recipes that are kid friendly. They just have a lot of good information on there, and it's really, really neat. So I would recommend anybody who's struggling to get their child to eat vegetables or fruit or anything like that, visit that site and, maybe get some ideas.
And I guess what age for kids would you say is more ideal to get them to pick when they're kind of old enough to understand that they can have a choice?
I would probably say maybe about by the time they're like 3, 4.
Okay.
Yeah. Not all kids maybe, but the majority of kids will, they already have their personality, they have an opinion about things. So yeah, I would say probably maybe 3 or 4, maybe even younger, just depending on how mature the child is.
Yes, of course.
So, yeah.
And I think another great tip for parents is to, when we talk about creative ways to introduce nutrition to kids, gardening. I love gardening,
Yes.
and it gets kids excited. They get to be outside, they get a little bit of that exercise,
Yes.
but they're also learning about nutrition.
They are. And it also helps them have like a sense of achievement, like they did something, like I grew this. So yeah, that might also get them excited as well.
Wonderful. So spices, when is it okay to introduce kids to spices? So let's first start out with salt. When
Okay.
can you start introducing kids to salt?
Normally it's when you start introducing them to solids. A lot of things that I've read say you might wait till 6 to 8 months before you start doing the spices. But you don't want to introduce anything that has too much sodium, because the sodium is going to really hurt their kidneys. So you want to start out with, spices like cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, and you want to do one at a time. Give it to them for about a week. Let them try it out and see if there's going to be any allergies, any reactions to it, and if not, you can move on to the next one. I will say though, even though it's not considered really a spice, but I wouldn't give a child honey until they're after the age of 1.
Really?
Yes.
And why is that?
Because it can cause botulism, and that can kill them.
So what is
So,
botulism?
yeah. Botulism is like an infection that, not an infection, it's like a bacteria, really, is what it is. And a lot of kids can get exposed to that if they eat honey before they're a year old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that common?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
But just take the proper precautions.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. And that's probably why we have a lot of people who don't give it to them. A lot of pediatricians will tell you, don't do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to these 5 food groups. So we talked about My Plate. What are some of the things that kids need to put into their diet? It's a little bit of everything, right? But the thing with My Plate, it's a little different from the food pyramid, but kind of the same. You're
Right.
just seeing it visually on a plate. So how much should kids get for each one?
They should probably get about.
I mean, not too much dairy, right? And
Yeah,
like,
no,
not
no,
too much. Yeah.
no. So, as far as like the vegetables, they should probably get maybe half a cup to a cup.
Okay.
It just depends on their age, of course.
Yeah.
Their meats, probably about 1 ounce to 2 ounces of meat, chicken, fish, things like that. Maybe a cup or 2 of calcium, which is milk, soy milk, just different kinds of things like that. But yeah, depending on their ages, that's how you're gonna determine what is appropriate for them.
Okay.
So, and myplate.gov does have a lot of that information, and they'll break it down for you in different kinds of age groups.
Myplate.com is so cool because
It is.
it kind of took away everything that I learned growing up as far as the food pyramid goes, because I just remember the food pyramid, and even so, I mean, you know, you have your grains on the bottom, then you have your sweets on top, but then at the end of the day, what does that mean? With My Plate, you can visually see it on a plate.
Exactly.
So parents, definitely check out myplate.gov if you haven't yet. It's really good information out there.
It is.
Okay, so for kids who, let's say they're eating a dinner plate and they don't finish all their food, like, Mom, Dad, I'm too full.
Right.
No, son, you need to eat all your chicken on your plate. Dad, I'm too full. What do you do as a parent at that point?
Well, even though I know it can be very frustrating, you want to try not to get too frustrated with them. But at the same time, you might try doing things like serving them smaller servings next time. You definitely don't want to reward or punish them for not finishing their food, because if you punish them, they're going to tend to, you know, finish it every time, but that could lead to overeating. And so as they become adults, they may not know when their limits are, you know, or they're always going to have that psychological, you know, notion that they have to finish everything on their plate, and like I said, it can lead to overeating.
And eating's supposed to be fun.
Exactly, and it you know, it'll cause more stress. So yeah, it's not a good idea to reward or punish if they don't finish their food.
And so for parents who are packing kids' lunches, and let's say, you know, they give them everything that is, you know, suggested by My Plate, for example. What if, you know, they come home and they didn't even touch anything? How do you address it to your child without making it sound like they're in trouble or not eating their food?
Well, you just have a simple discussion with them. You don't want to you don't want to sound like you're scolding, but just kind of get to the root of the problem. Like, you know, what happened? Why didn't you eat your lunch? You know, were the containers too hard to open, or was it something that you normally eat but it was too cold or too hot, or, you know, what was the issue? And, you know, once you figure out those types of issues, you can figure out a way to fix it. You know, if something got too cold, maybe you invest in a thermos, or, you know, if the containers are too hard to open, maybe find something that's a little easier for the child to open or go through. So, you know, just having a simple discussion.
And I think another thing too is, are you a mom?
Yes.
When you would send your kids to school, would you how would you make lunch fun for them? I see moms writing notes. I see them, you know, like decorating their fruits with like little smiley faces or whatever. And that was, it's fun, I think.
It is fun. And honestly, I didn't go that far. Okay. I did write the notes though.
You're like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah, I didn't have time for that. But I did write notes, you know, have a great day or whatever. And I'd cut their little sandwiches in, you know, triangles or whatever. But yeah, I think it's a great idea to do little things like that. If you've got time to do it, great, do it, you know, because I think it makes it more fun for the kids.
Yeah.
You know,
otherwise
definitely.
Just get those Lunchables and
yeah,
call it a
exactly.
day.
Call it a day.
So with kids, we know a lot of them are picky eaters. How do you know as a parent, oh, this is just a phase, you know, he's eventually going to get over this and he's going to have more foods in his diet? Whereas, how do you also know if it's selective eating and it really is going to affect the household?
So when you have a picky eater, you know, studies have shown that most picky eaters, they're not ever really underweight. They still grow at a regular pace, and, you know, they're not failing to thrive in terms of weight and height. They, you know, they may not even grow out of it, to be honest with you, but they will still, you know, they can still eat certain things, and they don't disrupt family time or family functions or meal times or anything like that. But if you do have a child who is failing to thrive in terms of weight and height, you know, they're teeny tiny for their age because they just won't eat, you may want to reach out to your pediatrician and see if there's any resources available to you, because yeah, that's when it's probably an issue, is when they're not growing like they should.
And one of the things that I remember as a kid was eating a lot of carrots because my mom always told me eating carrots is good for your eyes. And when I look at this is exactly what I think about. It's you know, like teaching kids like, hey, if you do this, this is going to be very beneficial for you.
Yes.
How important is that?
It's very important. I mean, education is, you know, is a wonderful tool. So it's always great to explain to a child, you know, if you eat this, this and this can, you know, help. Like you said, like the carrots, you know, that's the reason I ate carrots. Of course, I still wear glasses, but you know, I was just so gung-ho that if I kept eating carrots, I was gonna have great eyesight. But yeah, I mean, just letting your kids know what the benefits are, you know, and what can happen if you don't, you know. I think that's always very helpful. Wonderful. For parents to do.
Great. Well, any final words and any tips for any parents out there, any resources through Midland Health that parents should know about?
Well, if anyone needs any, you know, any more information, they can contact our community health educator, Danielle Moreno, at the City of Midland Health Department. And other than that, like I said, myplate.gov is a good resource. The cdc.gov is also a good resource. So I would recommend going to those sites if, you know, parents have any questions or need further information.
Awesome. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. I learned a lot today. And parents, eating is supposed to be fun, and please instill that in your kids. But thank you so much for joining us. And if you want to see more interviews that we have done with Midland Health Services, be sure to check out our website, newswest9.com, and our streaming app, 9+. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.